Well, it's the start of a new year, or it is for me. The tubers are on the bench. Still got a few in the garden to dig up, but generally they're still quite green, the plants, so I haven't really worried. Bit of a problem at trying to keep the doors closed. I need a fan in here, really, just blowing air around. There's a bit of humidity on the bubble there, but the tubers seem to be alright. I always worry about these fat stems like this. They do tend to rot or want to rot, so I'm going to start thinking about setting some of these up, particularly the small tubers, because some of them have actually got eyes on them where they were cut back in the ground for a bit, and there are some eyes starting to show on some of those, and I might as well just sort of wake them up and keep them ticking over. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this year. Last year I had the idea of using these Vitapods more for rooting cuttings with the domes on, and that didn't really work out for me, and I ended up over here with a mist on the open bench. So really I want to get the tubers on this side and have the cuttings on that. I like using these big trays, mostly because the tubers are big, and that's the tray of oak wood that's been set up now for a couple of weeks straight out of the ground and in. No great signs of life yet, but I'm sure they'll come in the end. Problem is that these trays don't fit very well in the Vitapod trays. So the idea I'm working on is I'm going to fill this up with sand to bring it up to the level of the edge, and then put the trays long ways across so they'll rest on these edges, but sitting on the sand bed, and that will transfer the heat up into the tray. And that way I could probably get 6 or so big trays across on there. The rest will go onto the sand beds, and then as I need the room I'll move them around. So I'm going to just do that now, get this sand bed done in here once I've cleaned it out, and start setting a few up. I've also got a few tubers to send off to various parts of the country. That's the sand in the trays. It's a different colour because that one's sharp sand and that one's grit sand. I don't think it really matters what sand it is. Just sort of packed it in a bit, drew a piece of wood over the top, so it's up to the level of the sides, and then watered it in. As you can see, the trays sort of sit across the Vitapod tray quite tidily, and hopefully I can get perhaps 6 or 7 in that run. So time to start looking at some of these tubers, and the ones that I want to wake up for fear of losing them, I'll get set up and organised. So that's the oak wood. The problem's going to be some of these tubers. This is a spare oak wood, but some of them are very big, so they're not going to get many in a tray. So these stems are a little bit fat, but actually seem to be drying out quite nicely. Let's hope. Well, it's been a fairly a long session in there, but I've managed to get all the tubers set up into trays and onto a bit of heat. I hear you all cry too early, but I haven't got a lot of time between now and Christmas. Very busy at work, and if they're just going to sit around potentially getting worse or rotting or going downhill, then I'd rather spend a little bit on heat for a couple of more weeks and wake them up. Once they're awake I can turn it down and just keep them ticking over. So that I've got whole trays here of Winolm Diane. Just about got 7 tubers in one of those trays, and that's where the big trays come in handy with these big tubers. I run out of compost, so these are sort of bedded on but not in and around, but it does show really how you have to lace some of these tubers in and out of each other to fit them in a tray, and that's Challenger, which always is a bit of a spidery tuber, but at best I could only get 5 in that tray there. Oakwood we know, it's been on for a couple of weeks now. In this tray I've got Naris Trisha at the front there. May give that a little go at the allotment. A1, which will be known as Rycroft Misty, giving that a go this year, and Happy Dying, which really is just good stock of Ruskin Dying. I think you would have seen that on Dave's garden tour. I've got the Moor Place in a tray on its own, as I have the Goethe Twilight on the tray of their own, because the Moor Place will come off sooner, because I take a sort of early March cutting on that, and I didn't want to mix it in trays. This one mostly come out of the garden, so they're tiny tubers. They're just like the old Dutch packet tubers. It's Mary's and Dave's Choice. There's about sort of 10 tubers of each in there. There we've got Canora Valentine with them massive stems. I did get 7 in that tray, with a bit of wiggling around. And then in that one here we've got Suzanne and Karen. So that's about what I'm growing. This year should be about 400 plants on the allotment, and then maybe some in the garden. If I do, then Karen will come in the garden. If not, I won't grow it. But it'll be Suzanne, Misty for miniature decks, Dave's Choice miniature ball, Mira's Germander for the miniature ball, 2 poms, Moor Place, Goethe Twilight, 2 small decks, Happy Dying, Winholm Dying, the Canora Valentine for the giant, Oakwood for small semi, and Challenger, and possibly some Trisha for the large semi. So that's them. They're on the heat. These are the ones I've got to sort through and get to a few people. If I can fit them in the boxes, that is, because they're still huge tubers. But that's mine on, and I'll slowly, hopefully, wake them up. They've all had a little drink around the tuber just to settle in the compost, but they probably won't get any more now until they show some signs of life. So that's it, all in the little greenhouse. Hopefully, where I only had 2 tubers of each last year, and now I've pretty much got trays of most. Should be a bit of an easier job propagating, and I won't need to take many early cuttings. I'll just hedge them up as trays of tubers and take them when I need them. Cheers.